Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we re-diving into a dramatic and pivotal moment in history, the Hungarian Revolution of 1956. It has a story of resistance, defiance, and the battle for freedom in the face of an overwhelming power. So, grab a seat and let's take a closer look at what happened, why it mattered, and how it shaped the course of the Cold War. The year is 1956, the Cold War is in full swing, and tensions are high between the Soviet Union and the West in Hungary, deep within the Soviet sphere of influence. Something extraordinary is about to unfold, a rebellion that would challenge Soviet control and echo across the Eastern Bloc. To understand why the Hungarian Revolution happened, we need to take a step back. After World War II, Hungary found itself firmly under Soviet domination. The Soviet Union had helped oust the Nazis, but once the war ended, they weren't about to let Hungary go. Hungary became a communist satellite state, with its government closely aligned with Moscow, but by the 1950s, not everyone was happy with this arrangement. Hungary, like many countries in Eastern Europe, was facing political oppression and economic hardship. Joseph Stalin's rule had left a brutal mark on the region. After Stalin's death in 1953, there was a brief period of hope. Hungarians started thinking that maybe, just maybe, they could break free from Soviet control. But that hope was quickly dashed when the new Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, started consolidating power and cracking down on any sign of dissent. By 1956, Hungary was in a dire situation. The government was corrupt, and the people were suffering from food shortages, high taxes, and harsh Soviet policies. The Hungarian workers were restless, and the youth, tired of Soviet oppression, were ready for change. Now, let's fast forward to October 23, 1956. Something crucial happens. A group of students in Budapest, inspired by the events happening in Poland, take to the streets. They are demanding reforms, freedom of speech, and an end to Soviet influence in their country. It begins as a peaceful student protest, but it quickly grows into something much larger. Thousands of workers join in, and soon the entire city is engulfed in a wave of demonstrations. As the protests spread, the people start calling for the resignation of the government, led by Matyas Rákosi, the Stalinist leader who had been in power since the late 1940s. Rákosi was a puppet of Moscow, and the Hungarian people had had enough of him. In a surprise move, the Soviet Union agrees to remove him from power, but they don't fully relinquish their control. This is where it gets interesting. On October 24th, the government names Imre Nagy, a reformist communist, as the new prime minister. Nagy was known for his moderate views and his willingness to stand up to Soviet authority. At first, it seemed like a victory for the protesters. Nagy promised reforms. He even spoke about withdrawing Hungary from the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet-led military alliance. But this was where things started to get complicated. The Hungarian people thought they had won, but the Soviet Union had other plans. By October 25th, the protests were growing stronger. In response, the Soviet Union sent in tanks to restore order. The streets of Budapest became a battleground. Civilians, including workers and students, fought back with whatever they could find. They used Molotov cocktails and makeshift barricades to defend their neighborhoods. The Soviet tanks fired on the crowds, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the streets. It was clear this wasn't just a protest anymore. It was an all-out revolution. The Hungarian Revolution caught the attention of the world. But the big question was, would the West intervene? The United States had long been in a standoff with the Soviet Union, but the West was hesitant to get involved directly in Hungary. The Cold War was already tense, and the U.S. was wary of provoking a larger conflict with the Soviet Union. Ultimately, no significant Western military intervention came. The revolution had to fight this battle alone. Imre Nagy, caught between his own people and the overwhelming power of the Soviet Union, tried to play both sides. He declared Hungary's neutrality and called for Soviet withdrawal, hoping to avoid further bloodshed, but by early November, the Soviets had had enough. On November 4th, Soviet forces launched a full-scale invasion of Hungary. Thousands of tanks and troops poured into Budapest. The Hungarian army, which had briefly sided with the revolutionaries, could not match the sheer power of the Soviet military. Nagy, along with many of his supporters, was arrested. He was later tried, convicted, and executed. The revolution was crushed, but the spirit of resistance lived on. The Soviets imposed a brutal crackdown on Hungary, but the events of 1956 would never be forgotten. So, what did the Hungarian Revolution of 1956 really mean in the grand scheme of history? Well, even though the uprising failed to overthrow Soviet control, it was a significant moment in the Cold War. It showed the world that not everyone in the Eastern Bloc was happy with Soviet rule. It was also a reminder that the Soviet Union would not tolerate any challenge to its authority. The revolution also had a lasting impact on Hungary. Though it was crushed, it sparked the hopes of future generations who would continue to resist Soviet domination. It would take more than 3 decades before Hungary finally gained its independence, but the spirit of the 1956 revolution would be an important symbol in that struggle. In the end, the Hungarian Revolution of 1956 was a tragic, yet heroic chapter in the history of the Cold War. It was a story of ordinary people rising up against an empire, fighting for their right to self-determination and freedom. Though they were defeated, the courage and ideals of the Hungarian revolutionaries would inspire many in the years to come. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video gave you a deeper understanding of the Hungarian Revolution. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more historical content. And let me know in the comments what you'd like me to cover next.